Hello everyone, welcome to a video on happiness. I have been pretty into positive psychology and the science of well-being for a long time, and especially was in the past. And during COVID, there was a class from Yale University, an instructor, Laurie Santos, that became free and available online for anyone, and became Yale University's most popular class. Um, and they had to move it from like classroom to the bigger room to the auditorium, and then made it free for everyone online, and which is where I heard about it and took it. So this video is really about that class and what I learned, and wanting to just share all of that with you. And in the class, she teaches that, here's what people think makes them happy, and here's the science that shows that that's not true. And here's what actually makes you happy, and here's the science that shows that that's true. And I think, that's one of the deepest, most fundamental spiritual questions of like, what really brings happiness? And she says, okay, now that you know what makes you happy, it's not enough to or now that you have to put it into practice. And how are you going to put it into practice? You're going to just rely on your self-discipline. Well, here's the science that shows that that doesn't work. So we need to set up our environment to support the practices that we want that will actually make us happy. And now that we know what really makes us happy based off the science. So I'm going to dive into it and just share things that I learned. I want to acknowledge too that, a lot was missing from that class as far as happiness. A lot of these notes that I'm going to go through, there's a lot from the class that are missing. And I added some of my own things. And I'll put these notes, I have them in a Google Doc. I'll put them in the description below so you can access them. And a lot of it is science, and there's like a lot of studies in here, so I'm going to be reading through it more so than other videos that I've posted. Okay, let's dive in. So she says the definition of happiness is 3 things. The least important is that you feel that you have a pleasant life, which is pleasant emotions, and that mindfulness and savoring can amplify this. The second part of happiness is that you have this feeling of being in flow a lot and in the zone in your life. And the third most important is that you feel that you have a meaningful life and that you have purpose. And it's strange too, because the Dalai Lama, he says that the purpose of life, he says that he wants to say without hesitation that the purpose of life is happiness. And it's kind of strange because like here she's saying in her definition of happiness is to have purpose, so it's like this, circle. I have a little bit of a hard time with the word purpose too. I think that I've seen, it created confusion in people, especially young people, and they're like, what is my purpose and why am I here? And I've seen people, feel depressed or even like suicidal because of this, and that it can create a lot of unnecessary confusion and suffering. And I really love that Sam Harris says, you wouldn't say that a wolf is so important that the universe must have had a higher purpose in producing it. Yet its beauty wouldn't be diminished once you acknowledge that there was no higher purpose. The wolf just eats when it's hungry, it sleeps when it's tired, and it just lives its life. I like this word of calling a lot more than purpose. And then it's just like, I feel called to go on this path or to do this or this career or to help these people, rather than like, this is my purpose, and it has like this extra pressure. That's just me. Okay, so she, and I'll keep saying she, which is Laurie Santos, which is the teacher of this class. She says that here's some things that people think make them happy that actually don't. And I'll just list them. Money, a good job, awesome stuff, true love, good grades, and a perfect body. And I'll kind of dive into these things a little bit more after. And she has a list of things that actually do make you happy. Number 1, and the most impactful for sure, which I have, there's a whole nother, there's a TED Talk I know of where they really go into this, where they say that the number 1 predictor of long-term happiness is quality, deep relationships. So social connection is by far the strongest and most impactful determinant of long-term happiness. Other things are collecting experiences, not things, creating a gratitude list, journaling about a positive experience, meditation, savoring, exercise, flow, sex, random acts of kindness, and actually the most powerful random act of kindness you can do is to write a gratitude letter for someone. I'll go into that a little more later. Dropping your social media and advertisements and TV, getting good sleep, and a good diet. And of course, there's lots of more things. These are just kind of things that they list in this class. And so it's like, okay, here's all these things that I know bring me happiness that I can do. And there's a study from Sonia Lyubomirsky that showed that actually only 40% of your happiness is through intentional activity. So it's like, okay, I know what brings me happiness and I can actually do those things, but still that is only 40% of your happiness. And that actually 50% of it is genetic and 10% is circumstances beyond our control, just like our environment and things. And now that we know that these behaviors will make us happy, to turning them into habits, what can be really helpful is called tracking. So journaling and noting and writing down and kind of like tracing your steps through this and solidifying insights and things like that. So just journaling. Okay, so let's go into the social part of happiness. Again, the biggest determinant of long-term happiness is quality, deep relationships. That's why I'm, traveling the world and wanting to be living in intentional community, and living with people in my life. Happy people spend more time with others and have a richer set of social connection than unhappy people. Happy people are more motivated to do kind things for others. And just that we compare ourselves so much to others, and just along the lines of being social with people, that we compare ourselves to others a lot, which has a big impact on our happiness. And just some studies that she talked about as far as that is that Olympic bronze medal winners are happier than silver. Silver is sad that they didn't get the gold, but the bronze is happy that they made it up there at all, onto the post. If you feel like you're making less than others in your firm, you like your job less. 56% of people would rather get $50,000 if others get $25,000 than get $100,000 if others get $250,000. So it's almost like I would rather get less money if you're getting less than me. And that's only 50%, 56% of people, but it's still a lot. An increased TV watching leads to increased estimate of average of other people's wealth. Increased TV watching leads to decreased estimate of your own wealth. Increased Facebook time leads to decreased self-esteem. And just ways to decrease social comparison are to stop watching TV, not having advertisements, and staying off social media. And, a big thing, we look at social media, we see the best in other people's lives, and we compare ourselves to that. And one way is to think of all the bad days that Bob is not showing on his social media. And just thinking about, many others out there that are far worse off than you. And again, Sam Harris says that there are literally billions of people out there that would consider their prayers answered to switch places with you. And so every week we would go through this class, and she would go through all this content, and then we would have a homework, and we actually get to really put it into practice and feel it. So this week's homework was to start a gratitude journal and journal 3 new things that you're grateful for every day and why. So she talks about these again, that she says, like, here's a lot of the things that people think make them happy that actually don't, and that the mind actually has these annoying features, and that our strongest intuitions are often wrong, and that we intuitively feel like here's these things that'll make us happy, but they actually don't. And like, she really shows the science and the studies that support that. We judge ourselves to relative reference points. We compare ourselves to others in ways that are actually, going to make us feel worse. We have this hedonic adaptation, which I'll come back to this more, but basically we get used to things, and we don't realize that we have this hedonic adaptation. This is called an impact bias, in that we overestimate the emotional impact of future events as far as their intensity and their duration. So basically, we here's an event that is that's going to be happening to us, and we overestimate how much it'll impact us. And this is a lot stronger for negative events or unpleasant events. This is called focalism, where we just think about one event and we forget about all the other things that happen, which is, really related to like the negativity bias, and that when something unpleasant happens to us, it's very sticky and it's like Velcro, and that's all you can think about, rather than all the positive, pleasant things that happen that just kind of slip off of our experience that we don't remember. And Tara Brach says that if you have 99 good experiences with a dog and one time they bite you, what's the time you remember? The time when the dog bites you. And there's actually a way that you can work with this. Rick Hansen is a psychologist that practices this. He has a TED Talk on it as well. The practice of what he calls installation, I believe it was called, where you practice installing positive emotion into yourself. And that, like, when something pleasant happens to you, you can actually take 20 seconds, I believe he says, is how long it takes. And you just sit with it and you really feel like, wow, this feels so good that this is happening right now. And you just sit with it and savor. And the homework for that week was to go out and do random acts of kindness and to connect with others. Okay, so the hedonic adaptation, again, is just that we get used to things, and that they easily become our baseline, and that, maybe you got a new car or a job or a new salary, a new partner, and that it's nice for a while, and then very quickly that just becomes the norm and the baseline, and we get used to it, and it doesn't affect us anymore. And I just am remembering this study too, where they talk about, people that have won the lottery versus people that got a spinal cord injury and became paraplegics. Here's this pleasant experience and this unpleasant experience, and both actually went right back to their baseline after, I think it was like 3 to 9 months. Ways to cure their hedonic adaptation are to buy experiences, not things. Experiences are better than material because they're temporary. You can't get used to them. Dan Gilbert, who is a positive psychologist, says that part of us believes a new car is better because it lasts longer. But in fact, the worst thing about the new car is it'll stay around to disappoint you. A new car sticks around to disappoint you, but a trip to Europe is over. It evaporates and has the good sense to go away, and you are left with nothing but a wonderful memory. Also, telling people about past experiences is better than telling them about purchases. It's more connecting and less boring, and people think more highly of you, and people compare themselves less to you. Thinking about a future vacation is better than a future material purchase, and actually people are able to look forward to it more and feel more excited about it. Writing for 15 minutes about things that you would have missed out on if you never met your partner. another exercise you can do. For example, like, oh, maybe I wouldn't have gotten this house or this job or led to this other experience or thing. Writing a gratitude letter to someone is one of the biggest things you can do to boost your happiness and their happiness. And studies showed that it would boost it for up to 3 months down the line. So yeah, really this idea of gratitude, and that can cure the hedonic adaptation, and that the secret to having it all is realizing you already do. There's a Stoic practice called negative visualization, where you can sit and imagine, not for too long, but just for a little bit, what life would be like without this person in your life or this thing. Ways, so savoring, she talks a lot about how that can really like enhance positive emotion and happiness. Ways to enhance it are to talking to another about how amazing this current experience is, or this past experience. Sharing an experience with others can increase savoring, which reminds me of the movie Into the Wild, how he like goes off into the wild alone, and then as he's dying, he carves into the wood that I think it was like, happiness is better when it's shared. And I will just acknowledge, I'm like 85% extrovert, and I really love being with people a lot more than others, and that's just really what fills my cup. So this will be a little bit biased in that way. So as far as enhancing savoring, again, later in meditation, you can remember or relive the event. Eating and walking meditation. Another Stoic practice is called the last time meditation, where anytime you do anything, you can imagine it's the last time you're doing it, because you never know. It could be. It could be, a meal, a conversation, a hug. Like not every time. A lot of times when I hug my mom, for some reason I remember I say to her, this could be our last hug, because it totally could. And some people say that sounds kind of morbid, and for me, it's just like, it really makes me savor it. Or sometimes when I go into the ocean, or if I'm leaving a place, like I'm getting on a plane tomorrow, for example, or something, and I'm leaving this place that I'm in, and I'm saying goodbye to all these people, and a lot of them I'm pretty sure I'm never going to see again, or I'm giving them the hug goodbye, and it's like really feeling like this could be the last time. And Sam Harris also said, you've had 1,000 opportunities to tell the people that you love them in a way that they feel it, in a way that you feel it, and you've missed most of them. And you don't know how many more opportunities or moments that you'll get. And he gives this example of skiing, and he's like, I haven't skied in 10 years. And he's like, will I ski again? I'm not sure. But if you would have gone back to me on that last slope that I was on and said, hey, Sam, are you going to ski again? Probably would have been like, yeah, for sure, I'll ski again. But now that 10 years have gone by and I haven't skied, it's like, I don't really know if I'll ever ski again. But if I, on that last slope going down, knew that this was the last time, I definitely would have savored it a lot more. So this is a beautiful practice I like to use. And there's this other experiment Tara Brach talks about. They got one of the best violinists in the world on like a $5 million violin, and they put him in the middle of this crowded subway station, and people were all walking by, and throughout the entire day, like only like 5 or 10 people stopped and actually watched. And that there's so much, this idea that there's so much that we're missing if we just can stop and look around and be able to savor. A poem that really encapsulates this that I love is, don't ask your children to strive for extraordinary lives. Such striving may seem admirable, but it is a form of foolishness. Help them instead to find the wonder and the marvel of ordinary life. Show them the joy of tasting tomatoes, apples, and pears. Show them how to cry when pets and people die. Show them the infinite pleasure in the touch of a hand, and make the ordinary come alive for them. The extraordinary will take care of itself. It's from William Martin. Okay, so as far as social comparisons, there's these things called reference points of like, what am I comparing myself to? And I can compare myself to others. I compare myself to a past version of myself. And there's what's called re-experiencing, where I can think back to, a less fortunate time of my life and compare myself now to then. And that, like, remembering an old sucky job or a crappy living situation. Like, for myself, I remember living in a one-room shack, and on this farm out, like, away from, the city with all my friends and family, and living on a couch in a kitchen with, like, a curtain separating me from the kitchen, and just, like, no privacy, and just, like, really crappy living situation. And just, like, how fortunate I am now. And just being conscious of the reference points that you're letting in, and like, what am I comparing myself to? And this is why dropping social media and advertisements and TV is so important. And so the homework for that week was exercise and getting good sleep. I have another video on sleep, so you can check that out or ask me about it. Okay, so like she said, the definition of happiness, the second one was being in flow, this feeling of being in the zone. So Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, something like that, coined this term flow, which the definition is performing an activity where you feel fully immersed in a feeling of energized focus, full involvement, and enjoyment. And for me, this is like, I really imagine being in the flow, in the zone, being present when I'm having sex. It's like the number one, or dancing. It's like I am so present. It feels pleasant. It's almost like samadhi, like this one pointedness, this concentration where like there's not really an observer of stimuli. It's like I am the stimuli, and I'm so encapsulated in it that I literally become my experience and like lose track of time. And I'm sure you all have heard about this, you experience it in like sports, like surfing a wave. It's like pretty hard to think about anything while you're surfing a wave, or creating some art, or like deep immersed in some work project. And there's this chart for flow where on the y-axis is challenge, and on the x-axis is skill. And that if you are doing an activity that requires like no challenge and no skill, you're kind of in apathy. And if you're doing an activity where it's super challenging and you don't have enough skill, then you're going to be feeling anxious. And if you're doing an activity where you're super skilled at, but there's not enough challenge, then you're going to be feeling, relaxation or boredom. But really, to feel flow, you have to have, an increased amount of challenge and skill. And so that really puts you into that feeling of flow. As far as motivation, she was saying that extrinsic motivation actually decreases intrinsic motivation. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about money here. There's a study from Stephen J. Stein that showed that income greater than doubled between the 1960s and 90s, but the proportion of people who describe themselves as happy remains stable at 30%. And Dan Gilbert, again, positive psychologist, I think it was in this documentary called Happy. He said that anyone that says money doesn't buy happiness should talk to someone living under a bridge. But anyone who says money buys happiness should talk to Bill Gates. Once you have your basic needs met, more money seems to not buy more happiness. The difference between someone who makes $5,000 and $50,000 is dramatic. The difference in happiness between someone who makes $50,000 and $50 million is not dramatic. And that this is a study from 2008 that showed that about 75,000 was kind of the cap, and that is how much it really took to get your basic needs, and that more money after that didn't lead to more happiness. I love this from Jim Carrey. He said, I think that everyone should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dream so that they can see that's not the answer. All right, so I'm going to go into kindness now, and how that can bring happiness. She said that writing memories of acts of kindness you've done can boost your happiness. Random acts of kindness, getting more happiness. So they did this study where they said, okay, everyone, we're going to have this group do 5 acts of kindness in one day, and this other group is going to do 1 act of kindness for 5 days. And they found that when you do 5 acts of kindness in one day, it actually boosted your happiness a lot more for that entire week. Spending money on others makes us happier than spending it on ourselves. And they did this other study where they gave like $10 to one group, just gave it to them to each person in the group, and then another group they said, okay, everyone, we're going to give you this $10 and you have to spend it on someone. And the people who had to spend it on someone were way more happier. And they found that the amount of money that they gave them or the income level of those people didn't matter. Okay, going back to social connection again. People who are in social connection are less vulnerable to premature death and you live longer, more likely to survive fatal illness, less likely to have stressful events in your life. People who are in social connection, the effect on happiness from being lonely is 7 times greater than getting a 4-fold increase in income. And I've heard too, like the effects of loneliness, or people who feel really lonely, it's the equivalent of smoking a whole pack of cigarettes per day. And I really feel this with like my parents and my generation's parents, and just I think this idea I have of like the 90s of people like really chasing success, and top CEOs and athletes, and people were like really wanting to become like the best in their field, and how they are really seeking this like uniqueness and like building a tall building of their life, and in that losing their social connection. People enjoy things more when they're with others. Again, going back to that into the wild moment. And again, it's different because people are more introverted or extroverted, and it depends who you're with. Okay, so I know a lot of people are like, I'm lonely and I want more social connection in my life, and how do I get that? So I took some notes here for that. People who talk to strangers so talking to strangers or talking to people in general is going to bring that. And they did this study where they found that people talking to people on buses and trains are happier than people who are just in their solitude. And they did a study where they said, okay, this group of people, we want you to talk to someone while you're on the train or the bus on your way to work. And this other control group, just stay in your solitude. And the people that talked to people on the bus or train were significantly happier. And they found they're like, why are people in solitude? Why aren't they reaching out? And they found that people just think that others don't want to talk to them, and that maybe they look busy on their phone or something. But that's actually wrong. That people actually, when they are engaged with, are a lot happier. And for me, I just think of dance, like I'm on the dance floor. I want to connect with someone, maybe ask them to dance. And I can be scared. The 2 reasons I'm scared are fear of rejection and making the other person uncomfortable. Again, I think dance is a little bit different here, but yeah. I think it's really that fear of making the other person uncomfortable. And what this study showed is that strangers are actually a lot happier when you talk to them. And I think like when we're actually talking to them, it's like, okay, are we having small talk or deep talk? And there's this TED Talk where this woman, she she says, I'm tired of having small talk with people. And so she actually creates this little deck of cards called the Big Talk questions, which are questions to skip the small talk and engage in like deeper conversation with people. And I actually made my own card deck like that. And in the process of making it, I memorized all these deeper questions to ask people. So it's pretty hard for me to have superficial small talk with people. And because that, it really, like, I dive deep with people quickly and have what my friend calls instamacy. I'll just give you one question right now I really love is asking someone, how do you spend your time? Because Dr. John Demartini says, if I want to know what someone values, I don't ask them, because if I ask them, they're going to give me all this philosophy. If I want to know what someone values, I ask them, how do you spend your time? What do you talk about? And what do you spend your money on? And so the second two, not so much, but I really love, like, how do you spend your time? Because when someone tells me that, it tells me so much about them, and then I can like ask more questions about that. Oh, wow, you do that. How'd you get into that? Blah, blah, blah. And last thing, to be able to build more social connection in your life is to join different communities. Volunteering, for me, it was really like going to ecstatic dances and diving into the ecstatic dance community. People who value time over money are a lot happier. Companies who give employees money to donate had more job satisfaction than compared to just giving their employees a normal bonus. Expressing gratitude to employees has more of a benefit than just giving them a bonus. People who have their phone out smile on average 30% less more to other people. Exercising for 30 minutes 3 times a week recovers people from depression at 87%, as opposed to Zoloft, an antidepressant that is 55%, and a combination of both at 60%. I'll just say that again. Exercising for 30 minutes 3 times a week recovers people from depression at 87%, as opposed to Zoloft, antidepressant, at 55%, and a combination of both at 60%. Exercise leads to prolonged cognitive function in older adults, and I think we may probably need increased cognitive function to be happy, perhaps. And so the homework for that week was meditation and to write a gratitude letter to someone. And I've done this. Writing gratitude letter to someone is like so powerful as far as boosting mine and their happiness. Okay, so we're getting towards the end here. Time affluence is this idea of just having like free, open time to, I'll read the definition. It's feeling that you have sufficient time to pursue activities that are personally meaningful, to reflect, to engage in leisure. And so the teacher of this class, I love that how she taught this to her students is when they showed up to class, she said, hey, class is canceled today, and actually sent everyone home. And she had this one student that came up to her and was like, Dr. Santos, like, and she started crying. She's like, I realized I haven't had free time, and I don't even know how long. And it's just like, go, go, go all the time. And I had this insight, one time with mushrooms where I was like, wow, I get it. I want lots of things to do that I'm interested in. And I want lots of time to do them where I'm not like rushed. And I want lots of motivation to do them. But I don't want that motivation to come from like not enough or like proving myself. I want it to be like healthy, intrinsic motivation of growth and contribution beyond myself. Okay, so again, it's like, here's the things that make us happy, and it's not enough to just know that. We have to put it into practice. How are you going to put it into practice? Are you going to rely on your self-discipline? Because here's the science that shows that doesn't help. And she showed us, and she said that actually what you need to do is set up your environment to support the behavior that you want in your life. And just, I'll quickly say, so she uses the example of diet as a way of like, how effective creating your environment to support your behavior is. And she said that, I'll just name some studies as far as that. She said that people eat 45% more candy when it's on the desk versus a few meters away, and 25% less candy when it's in your desk drawer than when it's on the desk. People who have cookies, chips, crackers, cereal, soda visible versus not visible weigh on average 22 pounds more. Invisible fruit and vegetables does the opposite. And just this idea that visibility and convenience really matter. If you serve yourself something, on average, you will eat 92% of it. If you increase your plate size from 10.5 inches to 12.5 inches, the typical person will serve themselves 30% more, roughly 180 more calories, which is 180 calories per day for a year is 18 pounds gained. If your friend's obese, you're 45% more likely to be obese. If your friend's obese, you're 25% more likely. If your friend's obese, you are 10% more likely, even if you never met them. We can see this with other behaviors as well. So yeah, it's not just like diet. It's like, okay, how my environment is around me, it so affects my behaviors, which affects my well-being. So again, deleting social media. The teacher, Laurie Santos, she said, like, if you get one thing from this class, get this: delete your social media. And for me, it's like, okay, I'm not ready to delete my Facebook yet. I'm very rarely on there, just for like posting things like this maybe, or for looking at events or something. But deleting the apps off of your phone. So you have to actually like go into Safari or into the internet browser and then search them, and just like creating those barriers to get there. Turning off notifications. So like this idea again that the phone is this huge distractor, and my phone won't make any noise or any flashes or anything ever unless someone calls me. Yeah, and keeping your phone out of sight. Yeah, again, like if you want to have a gratitude journal, like having the gratitude journal out, like by your bed, so that you do it before you go to bed, and just like creating your environment to support your behavior. For me, a really big one is having an accountability buddy. This is someone in my community or a friend or family that holds me accountable for a behavior that I want to inhabit. So let's say I want to go to bed at 10 o'clock every night, and I don't want to smoke cigarettes at night. And so in the past, I have said, like, hey, community, or hey, specific friend, I need help with this. Will you ask me at nighttime, hey, how are your cravings for smoking? Or are you going to smoke tonight? Hey, it's almost 10 o'clock. Do you want to go to bed? And then the next day asking, like, hey, did you smoke last night? Did you go to bed at 10 o'clock? Or whatever. Did you meditate? Did you do yoga? Whatever behavior that you want to start doing. And for me, it's like, if I know the person's going to ask me the next day, then that day before, I'm way more likely to do it, because I know they're going to ask me the next day. And if I smoked, I'm going to have to confess to them tomorrow that I did. And it's just like, that's a big motivator for me. Yeah. Okay, and just to end, Shawn Achor, who is the director of positive psychology at Harvard, I believe, or at least has a really great TED Talk where he describes 3 daily things you can do to that lead to positivity. First one is writing 3 new things you're grateful for and why. Again, that gratitude journal. Journaling about a positive experience. Exercising 15 minutes of mindful cardio, meditating, random acts of kindness. And again, like that, writing that gratitude letter for someone as a random act of kindness can be one of the most powerful. And as far as meditation, yeah, I really recommend the Calm app and the Waking Up app with Sam Harris. And I've heard of people using Insight Timer as well. And yeah, I just want to acknowledge too that, there's like these hierarchy of needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and like how to get towards happiness, and not talking about that at all. And I just want to name too, Tony Robbins has his 6 human needs, which I really love, and that there's 4 of the kind of like your basic fundamentals, which are certainty, uncertainty, love and belonging, and significance or uniqueness. And that you kind of need those to like, effectively function and feel safe and things. And that the 5th and 6th human needs are really where happiness and fulfillment come, which are growth and contribution beyond yourself. Okay, that's it. I hope that this was helpful, and that that you experience happiness, and may all beings feel happy. And just remembering that we're not doing this for ourselves, and that this is for the well-being of all beings everywhere. Okay, see you all next time.